Hey everyone, welcome into episode 5 of Tivoli Zoo, and this is where we left off in the last episode, finishing up the Frontier Center, which is a conservation and education building where they would do a lot of research and educational type things. I'm fairly certain this is like an amphitheater, just based on the shape of it. I've actually never been inside of this building, but that's kind of purposes it would serve inside of the zoo. So in today's episode, I've already kind of started working on it a little bit here. This needs to be a patio area for this restaurant. It's like a quick service restaurant. And I was looking at the master plan, and I'm pretty sure that this actually doesn't make it into the master plan. I think they get rid of this, but I'm going to keep it in because I think it is nice to have it kind of be a part of, when you think about the timeline of the zoo, it's nice to have it be a part of whenever this got built, that they would have also done all of this work. And I just like the idea of kind of having distinct stages of the development process. Even though we're going to be doing, a big chunk of the master plan, there will still be areas that are older and have a different period and a different architectural style and a different feel to them relative to the master plan. And I think that's the kind of stuff that just adds to the realism. So I'm gonna keep working on this, work on the patio here. It's not going to be anything groundbreaking or shattering, but I do want to at least finish that up before I start moving in this direction. All right, so the foundation of this is pretty much done here. I need to, go on with some landscaping and some rock work, but really happy with how this turned out. I think it's got a, just a pretty generic feel to it, especially with this metal roof kind of awning here as you walk up to the restaurant. It's got, plenty of access, so you can come in through these two side doors, and then this would be like a garage door that kind of shuts when they close down at night, that opens up onto this dining patio here. So again, nothing groundbreaking or earth-shattering, but I think it fits in with sort of the generic style that is a part of this area here, and certainly meshes well with the Frontier Center and then back to the entrance building, I think. So yeah, just a few more details here, and then I think I'll be ready to move on to the animal hospital and start working on the Savanna. All right, in the spirit of cleaning things up, I realized I never put a little gate in to block this backstage area for the staff. So just put something simple in here. These are supposed to be like kind of vertical steel beams that would be placed pretty far down into the ground, mostly because these doors would be very, very heavy. So it's probably something that some of you have noticed or seen, but it's pretty common in doing these types of gates here. So that was just a random thing. I also wanted to pop into Tegid Cam here just because I don't think I've done it yet on an episode, and I wanted to give you a feel for kind of how things are shaping up in terms of how peeps are viewing the zoo, because I think that's when it really kind of shines. So I don't know what's going on down there, but yeah, so we'll just kind of make our way down here and finished up the restaurant area. So I reinforced a lot of this under here. I know it's not something that you see from above, but when you're down in the peep view, it just adds to the realism of having the proper type supporting. Did some just greenscaping. Landscaping, I think I've mentioned, is not my biggest strength. It's something that I really have to try to not get into sort of a pattern where, if left to my own devices, I would just take all of these plants and duplicate a pattern all the way through here. So I've been trying to have somewhat of a palette of plants that makes sense, but also vary it as much as I can throughout all of these different planters and beds. So hopefully it looks convincing. Hopefully it's looking realistic, but certainly not my biggest strength. I'm just trying to make it look as close to like the street view as I can. But really pleased with this little seating area up here. I love the views into the lion pen that you would get. Oh, perfect, right on cue. Another video of an animal taking a dump. Yeah, I love how you get to see right into this exhibit here. You're elevated from this pathway, and as people are walking by, you're not obstructed from viewing into that exhibit. And even when the African Savanna is done, I'm sure I'll have some trees and some planters and stuff in here as well, but you should have a pretty decent view into the Savanna as well. So yeah, I think we're ready to go ahead and start in a new area here. I did, like I said, want to clean this up before I moved on. So we will start working on the animal hospital next. Okay, so I thought we'd return to this map here just to get a better idea again of where we're headed and kind of what we've gotten done. So you see here's our entrance area, our Predator Ridge. It's called the Gate Center in real life, but this is our Frontier Center, as well as the restaurant, which you can see it looks like in the master plan it's no longer a part of it. But the next thing is the hospital right here. So they've actually broken ground on the hospital, but I don't believe they are currently working on this African Savanna project. I think they have a pretty decent budget shortfall when it comes to implementing this master plan, which is a shame. And, I guess it's not atypical of things. There's always the concept art. Then there's what happens after that, which is, you go through a review board and you go through budgeting and all that. And usually you get something in between, a sort of bare bones improvement and the original design. So I think they have every intention of doing this in the future, but as far as I know, all they're working on right now is the animal hospital, and it's a little bit of a different concept than they were than what you see here in this instance. And part of that is this pedestrian bridge, which I'm working on, and I'm not sure I'm going to keep it. I'll show you once we hop back into the game, but it feeds into this round building here and this sort of path in front of it. And this building, I believe, is supposed to be for like school field trips or educational things like that, group tours where you would have like a guide and they would do like some educational stuff about conservation or the animals in the exhibit. In the master plan design, it's sort of an African hut, and I want to do something a little bit different than that. I've got a couple ideas, and that's kind of how this is going to go from here on out. Is I'm going to take the inspiration from this master plan, and each one of these areas has some concept art to it that shows it from sort of a ground level perspective. And I'm going to try to take from that, but also take architecture that I really like and take other designs that I really like and kind of make some of it my own and put my own imprint on the project. So I think it would be good to take a look at the Google Earth here. So to put this into reality context, so here's our entrance, Predator Ridge, the Gate Center or Frontier Center, and then this is the start of the African Savanna over here. So this has been torn down, and then your animal hospital kind of goes in this area here, and then this path will eventually cut across these exhibits. You'd have a land bridge over it. This would be one African Savanna. This would be another one here, and then you'd have a land bridge, so a path will come through here, and you have a land bridge connecting the second savanna into this backstage area and animal holding area. So yeah, let's jump back over to the game, and I'll show you the progress I've got going on this so far. Okay, so very early design on the hospital here. You can see I've got this pedestrian bridge working, which I think I probably won't keep, honestly, because it's not even functional. I mean, I could make it functional. I could do this 3-meter path method all the way down to probably... Well, I could probably get away with doing it to here, but honestly, I'm not sure it's worth it, especially since I think its main intention is to be used for like group events and things like that, and not necessarily a main entrance into the zoo. So we'll see whether or not I keep that, but this is pretty true to the current plan for the animal hospital. So this would be just your main hospital building. The current plan calls for an entrance into here, and then it actually has a viewing room down into what would be like surgery and stuff like that, which I think that would be a huge opportunity for Frontier to implement something like that into the game. I know that right now, all of these sort of facilities, buildings that are based for staff, so like right now, if I put a vet surgery down and peeps walked by it, they would view this as a negative. So I think at the very least for like vet surgery, it would be cool for Frontier to change this characteristic where it might actually even be viewed as an attraction. So maybe they give the vet hospital the same character trait that they would like the, what is it? I haven't even used them yet. So small animal exhibits. Yeah. So whatever sort of in-game characteristic this building has, if they could apply it to the vet hospital, I think that would be pretty cool, where people actually maybe seek it out to look at it. I know that's probably not something that would be widely used, so it probably won't happen, but I do think it's a shame that it's not viewed as a positive, because I think most zoos nowadays are really viewing that sort of thing as an educational tool to bring awareness to the animals, and also sort of as an additional attraction to the zoo. Jumping ahead here, this terrain work took a little bit of a time. I'm not sure that I'll be able to get like a wheelchair ramp in here. I'll probably put something in where there'll be handicap access over here for like an elevator up to this main floor or something, or even technically this is a ramp here. I could put in one up here. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that yet, but I do like how these stairs are shaping up. And then this is some of Rycie's font, which I linked in the last episode, and incredibly useful stuff. So thank you. I think I actually took hers and then tweaked it a little bit. This doesn't have I don't know what it's called when like letters have like a little nub on them or whatever, but I just took the nubs off of her font and used this for the sign because it matched more closely to the source material. So again, this is going to be the area where you can walk in, and I'm just going to put in some of those vet buildings right here. And I doubt any of the in-game peeps will actually come use it, but hopefully it kind of sells what it's supposed to be in real life. Also, as I mentioned, I was going to do something a little bit different than the African mud hut here that they have in the master plan. So this is inspired by it's called Soccer City in Johannesburg, South Africa. It was the stadium that was built for the World Cup final when South Africa hosted. I can't remember. I think it's called like FNB Stadium now or something like that. But it was designed to look like a big drum, and I'll put a photo up so you see exactly what I'm talking about. But it has a big drum with this like mosaic pattern on it. So I really liked that design ever since I saw it in the World Cup that year, and I thought fitting in with the African Savanna and just sort of the culture, it made a lot of sense to replace that African mud hut with a more custom building. So I'll continue to work on this mosaic, and I think I have decided I am gonna ditch this bridge, so it will be gone in the next cut. Okay, making more progress on this drum and the mosaic pattern. It's proving to be pretty tedious. I'm starting to do it more in batches, but I do want to be pretty intentional about how this pattern looks and kind of how it blends together. So I'll get in and change some tiles and change some color, and then zoom out and make sure it's looking good. And then in order to kind of convey a transition from the animal hospital and into the exhibit, I thought it would be cool to implement some of this mosaic on this same tile pattern that is on the animal hospital sign over here. So this is an example of what I was talking about, where yes, there is a master plan. Yes, there is concept art for it. But anytime I have an opportunity to do something a little bit unique and kind of put my own spin on it, I'm gonna take that opportunity. So finish these stairs here and just trying to put in plants that are very low maintenance and do offer some nice greenery and also kind of match the style of the building, which I think is headed in the right direction on that front. Okay, so the big change from this last cut is I wanted to put some windows in. I think it looked fine from the outside, but considering that I want this to be an education sort of hub for field trips and things like that, I do think that it needs to have a fair amount of light natural light coming into the building during the daytime. So it's proving to be a little bit trickier than I was hoping for. I'm trying to work on a way to cover these panels up on the inside. I think I'm gonna have to switch these to these are the 4x4 meter glass walls. I think I'm gonna have to switch them to the 2x4 to make this thing work, but it sure would be nice if we could get just regular glass without any border, if anyone from Frontier is watching. And then I decided in the concept art there's like an outdoor viewing area that's attached to this building, and I wanted to keep that as a part of this design. So I'm going to translate down the mosaic into this down here and cover up this area so that there is a there's a working balcony out there for people to utilize, and then basically 3 large windows, well I guess 2 large windows, and then the opening that will look out onto the savannah when you're inside of this room. Making more progress, starting to put in some landscaping around this building here, and making more progress with the mosaic, which right now I think is a tad bit dark down here and maybe in this area, so I'll keep tweaking that. But it's proving to be a little bit tough out here because I can't really get like consistent sunlight on some of this. Like you can see this area here in particular. So yeah, it'll be a challenge. I'll have to keep kind of tweaking that and working on it, but was able to finish up the interior in here, which I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I think it looks really good with these bamboo walls, and then have these little education kiosks in the center here, which if they were going to bring a classroom in or something like that, or have a guided tour, they could use this as an educational area, and then keep sort of the lesson going as you walk out onto this balcony here and view animals on the savannah, and also potential for opportunity to have like giraffe feeding and things like that up here on this balcony, because they will absolutely be able to be tall enough to sort of do something like that over here. Also continuing to work on the interior for this. It's not going to be a full-fledged interior, just enough to sell the idea that you could come into this area, and if this were a big large room in here, you would actually look down into the surgery room. So it would be cool if we had something a little bit larger than these with just a glass wall. But for now, these work just fine, and I may do a custom one in the future if we ever get glass panels that don't have a border. That's something that I may go ahead and tackle in the future, and just kind of try to make custom assets and things like that. But for now, this works. The interiors of these buildings are so good. I think it's sort of better to have a realistic interior than to maybe be closer to the original design. Also, I started using, since we can turn power off now in the game, I started using these solar panels just on tops of the buildings, just to think it adds more realism. The only downside is I get all these notifications that all of these buildings are inaccessible to the mechanics, so that's a little bit annoying, but I'll put up with it because I think it looks really cool from the air to see those solar panels lined up on the building. Okay, so this is a zoomed in view of the concept for the African Savanna, and you can see we've got our education satellite here, and then there's a habitat theater, and then a lawn here that you can sit on as well, and then you would have these little stages here where keepers could do educational stuff, even do little animal shows potentially, as an education. So they would like schedule them throughout the day, and then they would have that stuff posted around the zoo, and then you could decide which ones you might want to attend. So I'm going to start working on that here. A lot of the other master plan exhibits have something similar to this as well. So it's going to be a regular feature going forward. But one thing I did want to point out here, which we will absolutely implement, is sort of the genius of this design. So they've made this where you can actually section off areas of this savanna. Even though it will still look like one huge open plain, it will it can actually be partitioned off. So this log beam here is not fixed in place, and same with this one, these ones here. And then also using the land, they can actually section it off where like this would be one isolated habitat that's elevated from like this stuff down here. So they could have animals that are all together but actually not be near one another if they needed to. And same thing here, they could move this tree across this area here, and it would section off all of this from the rest of this. And then you can use this tree here to actually barricade off this area so that when they are doing an exhibit, no other animals will actually be able to make their way in here. They can be very prudent about what they want allowed in this area while they have an educational thing going on in the theater. So also wanted to take a moment to show this bit of concept art because you can get a better understanding of kind of where we're headed in the direction we're going. So here's your outdoor theater. Here's your zookeeper giving a little educational thing. Looks like he's got a hawk or an eagle or something. You've got your grass lawn here that people can sit on, and then you've got your education complex here, which is our drum building. And then in the distance, you can see this is just a massive restaurant and like area that could be used for corporate events or weddings or basically anything you could think of, any type of event they could hold in this building over here. And then it's got a huge patio for eating that looks out onto there's like a watering hole here, which this whole area I think is going to be really, really cool to implement. And then you've got these fake, how do you say them? I think it's, Baobab trees. I think that's the right pronunciation. So these would be completely man-made. Obviously, they're not something that would grow in Colorado, or it would take years and years and years for them to get that large. So we're going to try to implement this little observation platform in them as well, and some of these rope bridges. We'll see how successful those are. It can be tricky dealing with the path tools, so at the very least they'll be there visually, but I'm hoping that I can get them to actually function where people might actually come up here and look at the exhibit from inside the tree. Trying to implement the basic gist of that plan there. So you've got your amphitheater here, you've got a little platform where a zookeeper could carry out an exhibit, and then your grass lawn here, and then we'll start fencing this in and starting to do some terrain work as well. This pathway here, so this is all going to be part of the braided path, which Mike Sheets is going to come in and do one of his garden rescues. It's probably going to be a multi-part episode, honestly, because the braided path spans from like basically down here all the way over to like right here and goes this whole distance in between. So, and then he'll have to kind of do something unique for each biome as well. So it'll be really cool to see how he tackles that. Honestly, if it was something that was left just to me, there's no way in hell it would make it into this plan, because it just looks pretty intense to do. And I think I can make it work with the paths, but there's no way I could pull it off from a landscaping standpoint. So looking forward to having him be a guest in a future episode. But again, just using track rides for editing the terrain. I did the same thing. I used the same track here as I did on this land bridge over here. So yeah, I think those are going to be great. I've already plopped in an animal just to test out to make sure that this is a walkable area. I didn't want to do all of that work and have it not actually operate. And it's completely walkable for the animals right now. You can see we've got our fake trees in here, and I kind of started on a little shack. It's just a sort of a placeholder to sell the idea. But things are starting to head in the right direction here. This is starting to shape up pretty nicely, I think, and while still being true to the concept art and to the master plan, it kind of I think has my own touch on it, which is exactly what I wanted. So the amphitheater is not functional, unfortunately, but the peeps wouldn't really come and sit here anyway unless I could figure out a way to get like a path in here and have them actually sit on a bench. But these aren't very tall either. They're supposed to look like steps, so you can just walk all the way down and then sit on one of the steps. But yeah, just working on some concepts for landscaping and rock work and things like that. Got this glass fence in here, and again, this is going to be an area that they'll be able to like section off with a tree log while they're doing an educational show or something like that. And honestly, they probably would have it like that most of the time, just because even in the concept art, these fences are not very tall. So I think for the most part, they would keep this area where the animals could maybe come up to here, and we'll have some rocks and stuff, or dig out this ditch here. I'm still working on exactly how I'm going to make it function where, you know, the animals can't get too close to the people, just because you don't want people feeding animals, and you just don't want any of that interaction to happen, even though all of the animals that'll be in here will be pretty docile. So working on these bridges here, these land bridges, you know, the concept art for these kind of looks like they have like colored concrete that's supposed to look like earth, and it's more it's not quite this circular or arch shape. It's more it would like come out here and be a more gradual curve, which I really like. And I tried some different concepts to try to make that work, and I think I probably could have with some of the plaster pieces and stuff. But I also started messing around with this wood paneling because I think it looks really cool, and yeah, I'm liking the direction it's going. I think it looks really contemporary. It looks like something that's brand new inside of the zoo, and also looks structurally sound, which the concept art, it looks like it would have been pretty intense to make. So I may try to revisit it at some point, but honestly, I'm happy enough with these bridges that I think I'm going to keep these in this direction here. So just trying to add in additional retaining walls. I still have to extend this one out over here, but I'm going to wait to do that work until I know, because basically this is where it intersects with the path that goes in this direction, and then eventually meets up with the braided path over here. So this will be the back side of the zoo. I think that they call it like the canopy or something like that. It's just supposed to be really heavily lined with trees all the way along here. And then just basically copied and pasted this over here, and same thing. I'll continue to do the retaining wall work and fill that in and detail that in. Also, initial concept for the watering hole and this sort of little this little creek that's a part of it. Very early, very rough attempt at this, so none of this will stay the same as it is now. I just wanted to try to get an idea of spacing, and then as I continue to work with the terrain, I wanted to get a feel for where this stuff might go. But I think I need to shrink down this creek a little bit and then probably bring this forward, just because I'm getting a little bit nervous about fitting in still is like a big primate area that has to go back here, and then in between the primate area and the African Savanna is an exhibit called Peaks to Prairie, which kind of fills in this down here. So just in the interest of being able to fit it all in, I think I might actually make this exhibit a little bit smaller than what it looks like in the concept art. So something else I wanted to touch on was in the last episode, someone made the comment that cheetahs are kept away from other predators in zoos because they get anxious. And if anyone has any sort of research or information on that, I would love to see it, because I couldn't find any. And I don't doubt that could be the case, but I honestly couldn't find any information that says that they do try to keep them away from other predators in the zoo. I know that they do get anxious fairly easily. It's why a lot of them have dogs as a companion animal. But I don't want to completely undo all of this work if I am not absolutely certain that that's sort of a standard practice within zoos. So if you have that information, let me know. I would love. Honestly, I'm trying to make this as realistic as I can. So I would love that feedback if you have sources for that information. Starting to work on the back side of the animal hospital here, as well as the Savanna exhibit itself. So I've got these, as best I can tell from the concept art, there's a pretty good sized retaining wall that goes along here, and then all of this is backstage. And I can tell from the concept art that there's like rock walls on the interior here, and then they've got this sort of elevated planter where they're putting in trees and shrubs and things like that. All of this is just me messing around with different colors and textures, trying to get something that I like. I am going to keep this tree line in here just because it does a good job of not completely blocking the backstage, but your eye isn't first drawn to that stuff back there. You probably are going to be looking at the animals, and then hopefully this blocks a fair amount of your view. But I did put in, from the concept art, there is a keeper corridor here, so all of this will have rocks on the outside of it. But there is a keeper corridor, so this is how they access the exhibit. I am probably going to try something where I use some null barriers that each exhibit would share, so that I can put in more than one door, versus making this entire thing one exhibit with just one door. I'm going to try to do some stuff where I can have multiple entry points for the zookeepers, so we'll see how that works out. I honestly haven't messed around a ton with the barriers apart from just doing really this exhibit over here, but I think even if I hid concrete underground, I think I would be able to, because basically more or less this is one big exhibit, but it's got two staff doors, so I'm going to try to use that concept here. The only problem is I know that even with the null barrier, if an animal walks outside of it, you get an alarm saying that the animal has escaped. Even if they're still contained in this whole thing, I would get an alarm constantly that an animal has escaped their exhibit. So we'll see. I'm going to try to figure out how to make that work, because it's just not going to be feasible to handle all of these animals and all of this land area just from that one entrance there. Also, looking at the master plan, this area back here is a quarantine in the master plan, which for me, I think I'm going to use some of the facilities buildings and put windows in back here, and I'm going to make this the quarantine. So you've got sort of an outdoor area here that's got huge doors, so you could get giraffes in here. Really, there's no animal you wouldn't be able to get into this quarantine inside of the animal hospital. Elephants, giraffes, whatever. It's got a door into the actual quarantine itself, and then you would be able to help the animals within the hospital from these 2 points here. We're going to have animal storage here as well, just for the winter time and when there's inclement weather and things like that. So I think there's 3 different barns as a part of the master plan that kind of round around this area, and then you get to that huge restaurant building that'll be right here. Okay, so this will be the last update of this episode. I realize this is probably going to be like a 3-part episode or a 3-part project for the African Savanna, mainly just because all of this detail and infrastructure work takes so long. The Savanna itself is just messing with the terrain and painting the terrain and putting in the stuff for the animals, but it's all of this stuff that takes up the time. So for sure 2 episodes and possibly 3 altogether to get this part done. But I did want to pop down into Peep View to give you kind of that perspective, just because of so much of what I'm doing is meant to be viewed here. It's not just the aerial view, because obviously I'm putting ductwork and solar panels on top of roofs and things like that, but also equally important is the view and perspective down at Peep level, which so far very, very pleased with how that's turning out. This area here, I'm not going to do a ton of heavy detail work on plants and landscaping, because I already know Mike is going to have to break up a lot of this path work to do the braided path, and no sense in going through all the trouble to do all of that right now. So that said, I'm very pleased with the terrain work, subtle elevation changes and very gradual slopes. I think it looks really natural, and from up here, I think that looks pretty damn close to the concept art, at least in terms of where the exhibit's going and the terrain and all that stuff. So very happy with how that's coming together. I will drop down here to the back side of this building. And yeah, so instead of being quarantined, I wanted to have windows back here. So these are just all the little facilities. There's like the workshop and research and a couple of keeper huts, and then a staff room as well. And then started working on some of the barns. These are probably not the final position. I'm thinking about how I wanted to put in these like stalls. I noticed that these are kind of a common theme with Backstage of zoos, where either this is, one big pile of crap.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Or it's extra soil that they can use inside the exhibits. You've got a big thing of sand, and then I've got these thatch roofs that kind of convincingly look like hay. But again, these are probably going to move from where they are now. I'm trying to think about, like, from a disease perspective and quarantine perspective, you probably wouldn't want animals in quarantine this close to like potential food or other materials that would go inside of the exhibit. So more than anything, this was just a kind of a test to see if this would look convincing, which I think I totally think it sells what it's supposed to be. So I'll probably end up, since there's going to be 3 barns, I'll probably end up using this in like this side over here, and just getting rid of these storage areas altogether, or putting more materials like this stuff in here. So this is all part of Carlos. I can't remember he's like got numbers in his name, but I'll link the description. He's got an awesome Backstage set that I've just started kind of spamming around here and trying to work on infrastructure. So you'd have these huge doors here where you could load and unload animals if you needed to. You've got trash and recycling back here, and then just trying to make it look like this area is heavily used by the keepers for food and storage and deliveries and things like that. Just to make all of this Backstage feel and look as realistic as possible. I absolutely love these retaining walls. Couldn't be happier with how those turned out. And then we've got another gate here into the main exhibit. There was some conversation on the Bro Nation Discord about every exhibit should have a large gate where you could get heavy equipment into the exhibit, and that makes total sense, especially in something this size. So it's something I'm gonna have to revisit on the Predator Ridge back there, but definitely we'll have one here, and then I'll probably do 1 or 2 on the other side as well once we get over to that area. But it for sure makes sense here because you've got all of this delivery and loading and all that stuff back here, and you can even take some of the larger animals out of that gate and bring them into these barns back here, which I'll put stalls and stuff in these, but right now I just wanted to get the shell into place. But these will have interiors just because it shouldn't be too part count heavy or anything like that. So let's pop out that view here and give you sort of an aerial view as well. So yeah, there will be 3 barns. The third one I don't think is quite as large, so I'll probably end up putting like this soil and sand and hay over in this one here, and then putting the smaller barn in this area right here. But want to make sure that it makes sense from like a delivery standpoint and also health of the animals and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll keep working on the ductwork on top of this building. I just copied them around from these other structures, and I need to kind of personalize them and tweak them so that they make logistical sense on these roofs as well. So anyway, that is where I'm going to leave it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for bearing with me on a little bit of a delay. Thanksgiving week kind of threw me off here, and should be up to a more normal schedule going forward here. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and I will see you guys in the next episode.